Welcome to Tigers Untapped, a Bluff City Media podcast. Stepping up to the microphones are your hosts, Trey Lasley and TJ Willis. Pull up your chair, grab your favorite brew, and enjoy the conversation. Now, let's get to the show.
Yo, Kenny. What's going on, man?
Man, I just want to say to all the people that are watching this, welcome. And I say this because y'all don't like, y'all are humble. You don't like to brag, but welcome to the number one ranked Tigers podcast in all of the land, Tigers Untapped.
Look, we don't make the rules, right?
Yes.
If Big Game Boomer wants to call us the number one Tigers football podcast, whatever he calls us.
No, not Tiger Football Podcast, Tiger Podcast.
Oh, yeah. He did say Tiger Podcast, I believe.
Tiger Podcast.
Yeah.
This is it.
I mean,
what's up, brother?
It is what it is. Man, just another day in paradise. I got kind of weird with the beard today.
Yeah, you did.
So, and there's like an asterisk on this one probably. If you're an old head, you probably know Goldcrest 51. And I understand this is backwards for you all. It's not for me. This is very straightforward. I can read this on my screen.
Yeah.
It's flipped for you guys. I don't know why.
It's the transverse property. I don't know.
I don't know if that's how that works. I think that's A+.
It's not.
That's the ABC thing.
Yeah.
So Goldcrest was a Memphis beer. It's actually the original Memphis lager. And I think they actually sold it. Like they closed down and they sold it, but it still counts, I think. So
absolutely.
Plus, it's the only beer I have one of where Trey doesn't have a matching beer because if I drink one that he has, then it gets kind of weird, and then we're off schedule. And
and then people start chugging beers on camera. It just becomes a thing. And
the wrong beer on top.
The wrong beer.
Chugged to the wrong beer. Almost threw up for the wrong beer.
Speaking of, where is our boy at? What's going on? Did he quit? I heard he quit.
Yeah, I think so. He's at the beach. He does this. And he just sporadically, it was like, an hour ago. He's like, hey, man, I'm at the beach. I can't make it. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hold on. You just decided to go to the beach randomly out of nowhere? Like, what's happening here?
He's always at the lake or the beach. This is a true story. Trey is quite literally in the summertime always at the lake or the beach.
Is he a beach bum? Like, does he sit on the beach and tan? Does he like oil up and all that kind of stuff?
For sure. No. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one. I don't want to get him in trouble, but
yeah,
I don't think he does that by any means.
Is he
you know what I mean?
Is he a board shorts or a skinny? Like, what does he wear? Is he
I I think
Speedo. He wears Speedo.
Skies out, thighs out. I think he is like a 5-inch inseam swim trunk kind of guy.
God.
Like potentially dangerous at certain angles kind of
Yeah.
situation. So
you get him in a couple of beers on the beach, things might go down that nobody wants to see. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Joke's on him because I think they're actually having a tornado watch. I think is what he said earlier. I think he texted us and said that he's having a tornado watch. Now I was trying to look it up. So joke's on him. We got some rain. That sucks, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here with you, man. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm always behind the camera when whether we're in the studio or whether we're in StreamYard. But it's cool to be here with you, kind of co-hosting the show. I do want to say this. I can promise you this episode will actually come out because there is a lost episode that me and you had, remember? And I think I want to humbly apologize for that. I don't remember what happened. I think I just couldn't get it to it wouldn't finish exporting. Every time I would try to export the video out, it would get to like 100% and it would be like failure every time. And
no, I know what happened.
What's that?
Is you gave us an open mic and you and I went super long. It was like a 2-hour long episode.
Yeah, it was way too long.
And it was like, shit, we can't cut this down at all. So we got to trash it. But it won't be that long tonight. I don't have Trey here throwing me off kilter, ruining my schedule. Right. We actually don't have a schedule. True fact about this, we do not have a schedule this podcast, which is probably not something that I should admit. But
so when we teach our podcasting for dummies class, we should say don't do like how we do because we don't have a schedule.
Exactly.
But hey, you know who we do have waiting in the wings, and I want to bring him on now because let's get to this thing, man. We got a lot to talk about, but we got my guy, everybody's guy. Apparently, he is actually 7'3" tall, according to YouTube commenters. They're like, "Damn, Roman's tall." We got my guy, Roman.
Hey, how y'all doing?
What's going on, Roman?
What's going on, guys?
We wanted to bring Roman on because we got some basketball to talk about, man.
I mean, what else am I good for?
You're good for a lot of things. You're good for a good closet, shot. You're good for people legitimately think you're 7'3" in the YouTube comments. It's all about the angles, right?
I mean, I guess if the angles serve me well, the angles serve me well. I'm not going to complain about it.
So my question is, are you legit 7'3" or are you 6'6" like David Jones in the combine? Because
I don't know. I mean, I was measured at 6 foot flat for my high school graduation gown measurements, and that was about 2 years ago. So
are you still growing?
I'm supposed to still be growing, judging off my family's history, but I don't know.
He's hit a growth spurt. Kind of like how when a player comes to Memphis, TJ, they're automatically going to grow at least 6 inches, according to Penny Hardaway.
Never fails.
Never fails. Josh Minot grew 4 inches. Jonathan Pierre grew a couple of inches while he was here. I'm like, wait a second. The combine guys are like, actually, David Jones, you are not 6'6". You were 6'3.5".
Hey, David Jones may have shrunk. In between the Wichita game and the combine. You never know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People shrink sometimes, right? That happens. I mean,
you got to be like 90. You got to be like
happens to people much older than David Jones, to be fair.
Yeah, like Benjamin Button.
Yeah, that's it. Man, we want to bring Roman on, TJ, and talk Tiger basketball. Been a lot of big news, a lot of big things happening. Roman, I wanted to talk to you, man. Obviously, biggest news of the week, and TJ and I wanted to talk about it with you, is just Moussa Cisse returning back to the Tigers, man. Pretty big news for the Tigers, right?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Kenny, you and I discussed this pretty extensively on the reaction pod that dropped pretty quickly after John Rothstein reported that Moussa Cisse was indeed transferring back to Memphis, but I've seen a lot of different reactions to this news, some very positive, some very negative. And I definitely have to say that I'm more so on the positive side of things when it comes to Moussa returning to Memphis, because what people need to understand about this addition, if you will, is that Moussa is not coming here to be a big time contributor. Heck, he's not even coming here to be a starter, more likely than not. He's coming here to play a role, a specific role that few other guys can fill, really. And I mean, Memphis, basically since last season, has desperately needed, a rim running big that has size and athleticism, has the ability to defend at a very high level, can defend, at the rim specifically, can block shots, can do all that. I mean, Moussa Cisse is a perfect description of what Memphis specifically needs in its front court. The bigs that work in Penny's system. They got off to a really good start in Tyreek Smith, but he's 6'8", kind of a stretch 5 at best. Has more of the size of a 4. Even his skill set is more tailored towards a 5, but his size is more so towards a 4. Moussa is a pure 5 that has all the same abilities as a guy like Tyreek Smith. So having both of those guys in the front court this year is pretty huge in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. TJ, what are you? We've kind of been firmly in the camp that this is a good move for Penny, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Roman's kind of already.
Oh boy, Roman, is he back?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
He's
now?
back. There he is. Yeah.
Here's the thing: is I pulled one of these wires, and I think I broke something in here.
Oh boy, you sound lovely.
Good.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah,
we're good, right? Perfect.
Yep.
Roman kind of touched on it already. You're bringing him in, and he's going to be your second, maybe even your third big in some cases. And I don't know if you can get a better second or third big in the country, right? I mean, he's coming in. He's not going to require a lot of usage. He's not going to require the ball. He's your rim protector. He could run the court for you. He rebounds decently well, given the amount of minutes that he plays. I think he put up I remember off the top of my head, either 5 or 6 rebounds a game last year in 18 minutes. I mean, if you look at that from a per minute basis, he does his job in the time that he's on the court. As long as you don't expect him to score, I think you're fine. And I don't think anyone realistically is bringing in Moussa Cisse and asking him to score, right?
Yes. Dane Danger is probably your main offensive threat in terms of the front court, but none of these guys really are going to be expecting big usage when you're talking about, the big men, the Jourdain, Danger, Cisse, Smith. None of those guys are really expecting to carry a major offensive load. That's going to be more so tailored towards the backcourt. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's a big difference in approach overall. Penny's system, especially offensively, is more so tailored towards, the lead guards, the bucket getters in the backcourt. And having a guy in the front court that, needs to score 15 points a game to be effective, like say Jordan Brown, that ultimately is going to hurt you if you're Penny Hardaway. So getting guys that are more so, I guess, designed to be role players and defenders and shot blockers and what have you, that definitely is going to be beneficial moving forward.
It sounds like to me that what Penny is trying to do with this front court is more so target guys that are effective defensively. Yes, 100%. And number 2, be willing to crash the offensive boards, right? Like set picks, rim run.
Yes,
that's a tough one, TJ. Rim run and crash the offensive boards, because you've got, especially if you're talking about David Jones' potential comeback to the Tigers, you're talking about a backcourt that is going to be expected to be the heavy, carry the load offensively, right? I do have one question for both of y'all. Penny announced, they're doing their kind of meet the fans. They're doing like 4 stops, and one of them, the first
Tigers on Tour.
Tigers on Tour. The first one was in Collierville, and Penny announced during that time they were doing a question and answer period, and he kind of surprised everybody, saying that Nick Jourdain is going to be a wing this year. Is that based on what do you think that's based on what he saw out of Nae'Quan, like kind of the effectiveness of Nae'Quan on the wing, and what do you expect Like, does that open up Jourdain's game a little bit more?
To me, he's a 4 or 5. I don't think Jourdain has the lateral movement necessary to play the 3 or defend opposing 3s. I don't think he has the athleticism or the ball handling, really the shooting or anything. I don't think it's wise to, rely on Jourdain to be a backup wing. I mean, or a starting wing or anything on the wing, honestly. It's sounding more and more like David Jones is going to be back. I know the staff is very much under the assumption at this point that he's going to be back. But even if he's not, I would still be looking to heavily attack the wing position, Backup wing. If David isn't back, starting wing, I would not rely on Jourdain to be a wing. Just wouldn't.
Yeah, like what do you mean by that? Like he's going to be a wing? And I know we saw it with Nae'Quan, and Nae'Quan was actually pretty damn good at it last year, if we're being honest. I mean,
I thought his most effective game as a starter, TJ, was when he was that wing when they went jumbo big.
Yeah, but Jourdain's not Tomlin. He doesn't have athleticism or his lateral movement or anything like that.
Yeah, he's a different player.
Yeah.
I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but Tomlin at times got that KD comparison because he was so long and he was so lanky, but so mobile. You're not making that comparison with Jourdain. It's just not there. But I guess it kind of depends on what you're referencing. Are we going to start running like a 2-3 zone and he's going to play where the 3 typically would? And then like, whatever, he's long enough. I think he could probably not close out a corner 3 anyway, because we never do. But
we never do because we have the wrong dudes covering the corners. Honestly,
I know it. I guess it just depends on what they mean by that. Like he's going to be playing 3. Like I could see it against some teams. Maybe it's got to be a very specific team you're playing. But if you're out there against like North Texas, who's the other team that likes to shoot a lot of 3s?
Well, North Texas is going to look completely different next year because they've pretty much been gutted by the
roster turnover.
They're going to look completely different. No Scott, no CJ Nolan, no Reuben Jones, no Jason Edwards. None of those guys are back. So they're going to look completely different. And honestly, with the Jourdain, it sounds like one of those things that Penny is saying publicly to try to maybe appease him and to maybe, convince him that he's in better standing than he may actually be in, because they've made a lot of additions and really recruited over Jourdain in the sense of the front court. So maybe by him saying that publicly, he's trying to reassure Jourdain of his position on the team. I mean, this is a guy in Penny that once told DJ Jeffries that he was going to have a chance to play the 1 at Memphis just to get him to sign. So, and everyone knows that was never going to be the case. So it sounds like one of those things to me, to be truly honest there.
So let's do this. Let's do a power rankings of the front court. Where do you, obviously there's a lot of turnover in the front court. Where do you rank? Like, I'm going to continue to put Jourdain in that front court. He's not he's not in the back court. He's not a backcourt player.
Yeah, to me, you got 4 front court players in Danger, Jourdain, Smith, and Cisse.
Who are going to be the most in terms of effectiveness, 1 to 4 for Penny this year?
Number 1's probably Danger. I think he's going to be a really tough guard in the AAC. The league just doesn't have a lot of bigs that can handle the combination of size and athleticism that Dane Danger has. I know that a lot of people are concerned with the lack of production on him in Illinois, but you got to remember that his minutes were cut in half from his sophomore to his junior year. And as a sophomore, 9 points and 5 boards a game in 20 minutes per contest, that's really, really solid efficiency. And he put up similar numbers, 6 points and 3 boards a game in about 10 minutes per contest. So minutes got, sliced in half, and yet he was still able to produce at a moderately acceptable level. I think he can easily be a 8 board a game guy in the American for sure.
So who else do you think, TJ? You agree with Danger being kind of number 1 guy in the front court?
Yeah, I mean, he is very similar to DeAndre Williams in the sense that he is a big man that moves pretty good with the ball, and he just has a different skill set. He is a guard in a big man's body at times when you watch him, right? I think that he definitely has the ability to be something special, and especially when you're going against the American. I mean, it kind of gives me is a little different, but Kenneth Lofton Jr. kind of vibes, just because Lofton was a true big man, and he knew it, and he knew how to use his body. Whereas I think a little bit different with Danger is that Danger just is very athletic for given how big that he is. I think there's just a little bit different, but also a little bit of bully ball on both of the guys that I think that they could both probably get away with, against was that Sunbelt for Lofton, and then obviously Danger at Memphis. I just think they both have an incredible skill set that is unique to guys being as big as they are.
So then I guess the real question then is, obviously we think Danger's going to be the most productive big on this team next year, expected to produce the most in terms of on the offensive side of the floor. Where do you rank these next three guys? Like, you've got like different styles, different types of players, but in terms of like what we know of Penny and his game plan and how he likes to flow on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, is it going to be Tyreek, or do you think it's going to be Jourdain?
I don't know. I think Tyreek Smith fits Penny Hardaway better in terms of like a system fit, but Jourdain's been here for a year already.
Right.
And he produced at a very moderate level when he got the opportunity. I mean, of course, it's undeniable that Jourdain's production went down significantly when Tomlin fully got fleshed into the fold. But during the early portion of last season, Jourdain was one of the better players on the team, by far the most efficient player on the team. So I think Penny's automatically
wasn't he
trust in him early
wasn't
on.
he leading the country in field goal percentage for like a better part of the first part of for a large portion of the first part of the year? I mean, it was filling it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So because of the the trust factor between Penny and Jourdain, it's probably going to be him at least early on. But I can easily see a scenario kind of like last year where Jourdain falls further and further down the totem pole as the year goes on, and you're seeing more of Cisse and Tyreek Smith and Dane Danger, down the stretch of the season, because all respect to Jourdain, he's a really talented player, but I think the three other guys are better fits for Memphis' system under Penny.
Yeah, I guess my question lies in, what do you mean by how would we rank them?
I guess in terms of like effectiveness, right? Like what
we're talking about. Effective players, though. They're all going to be very effective in their roles. So that's hard.
Yeah.
Go ahead, TJ. My bad.
No, I was just going to say they all do something so different. Well, I guess Tyreek Smith and Moussa are kind of similar to each other, but with Jourdain, he has the ability to kind of step out and shoot the three. He can be that stretch big. You're not really getting that with anybody else, the ones remaining at least. So he's unique in that manner. I just don't think he has that mobility and that rim running that you get from a Tyreek Smith or from a Moussa Cisse. Obviously, from a scoring perspective, Cisse, we've talked on it a number of times. He's not really going to be your threat there unless he's just running the rim. He may catch the ball. He may not. We'll find out. Tyreek shows that he can do that. I do think that Tyreek Smith's probably a better fit. Especially if you're going to play it at such a high pace kind of situation as they have in years past. So not to mention he's a fifth year guy. So I think I would put a little bit more trust in him. I know we praise consistency here and having guys run it back and come back year after year after year and having something to build off of, guys that know this system. And you kind of get that with Temple Trey's not here. So Temple guy.
His name is Nick.
You don't
Jourdain.
get that with Jourdain. You get that with Jourdain, right?
But let's not forget though, like Nick, there was a portion of the season at the end of the season where when Nick was on the floor, the offense, they ran a lot of action through Nick Jourdain at the free throw line extended. Whether it was through pick and rolls with Javon, that pick and roll with Javon was a pretty effective play for a large portion of the second half of the season. But then they would also get the ball to him at the top of the key, and he would either dive to the basket and pressure the paint, or he would hit cutters, hit whatever. That was an effective, like it does feel like to me that Nick, even though his production might have like dropped a little bit, that there was a level of I guess comfortability with the offensive staff or with the offensive scheme around running some of the plays and actions through Nick. And so I'm wondering, like, what does that look like? Does that change? Like, does Tyreek take that role? Is that something that sticks this year with Nick's play? Like, because that was an effective play for Memphis for a large portion of the second half of the season.
I mean, but honestly, the problem with Jourdain is that he's an offensive player, and Memphis is moving towards a very defensive-oriented front court. It's very obvious with what Penny's doing. And all of the offense that, Memphis is relying on for next year is going to come from the backcourt with guys like Haggerty and Rogers and Hunter, and not to mention David Jones winning if he's back. So it's going to be tough for Jourdain to even get the kind of production that he was getting last year, especially considering that any of the offense coming from the front court is probably going to come from Danger before it comes from him. So I think Jourdain's going to find a way to make an impact for sure. But again, like I just mentioned, it can definitely be a situation where his role slowly falters towards the end of the year as guys like Cisse and Smith begin to turn up defensively, as they fully, get comfortable in the system, and Danger continues getting in better shape and getting more dominant in conference play. I can easily see a situation there with Jourdain just kind of falling out of the shadow again.
What do y'all think? Go ahead, TJ.
No, I was going to say, I'm actually want to throw a curveball in here. Like, assuming David Jones does come back, is there a chance that we just get real weird and they roll out this lineup of 3 guards plus David Jones at the small 4, and then you have to find your guy who you think is the best fit for that small ball 5? Or are they going to get real weird? You get a Danger out there. Is it Tyreek Smith that makes the most sense? Is it Nick Jourdain? Like, who makes sense at that small ball 5 if they do that? Because I do think there's going to be times where we do see that, assuming David Jones comes back, of course.
Yeah, I like that lineup, but I don't like Rogers at the 3, especially to start the game. Just don't like that. He doesn't have the size.
No, not just
defensive capability.
Yeah, not to start the game, but just I think we're going to see it regardless. Like, I think we have a pure onslaught of offense can come at people. So
Penny has made it very clear, and even during the season prior to the Caleb Mills injury, he talked about how the offense ran the most effectively when they ran a small ball lineup, right? And I think it would be interesting to me to see, what that does, like what that looks like with this iteration if David Jones comes back. Because, like, how does that work for? I mean, David Jones will obviously be the focal point if he does come back. And, his main goal, I think, would be to kind of maximize his potential to get to the league and be a pro. Does that work for him, right? Especially with, like, what, and I know Penny's not going to run his system through how do we get David Jones to the NBA. He's trying to win games and go far in the tournament and win the tournament, win the AAC or win the AAC tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. But it will be interesting because I do think Penny has made it very clear small ball lineups are kind of what he thinks is most effective.
Well, here's the thing with David is that I think it's going to have to be an understanding from the beginning before he even officially announces he's back that he shouldn't expect to average 21 a game again next year. Just shouldn't.
Interesting.
Because all David has left at this point to improve his stock is to win. He's never been to the tournament before. I don't even know if he's been to the NIT before. David Jones, as effective and as good of a college player as he's been, has yet to play major postseason ball. He's got to prove that he can lead a team to that, And
wasn't that kind of the narrative about him when he came here, was that he's a great player, but does he win? Is he a winner? Right?
Yeah, and winning takes sacrifice. It takes, being willing to maybe produce less numbers for the betterment of the team. David can easily still average 17 or 18 a game next year for sure, but I don't know if he should expect to be a top 10 scorer in the NCAA again next year if this team wants to be at its most effective.
Yeah, I kind of want to. I feel like there's a chance you could help David Jones draft stock by
and stack.
Yes, draft stock. by taking the ball out of his hand and not being so much of a focal point, right? I mean, obviously Roman touched on it. Like, he doesn't have to be that 22, 23, 24 point scorer a game. Like, he can drop down to 17, 18 as long as his efficiencies don't drop, right? If they're right there or climb, obviously, in a more ideal state. If they can get a little bit more efficient, maybe he's not turning it over as much, things like that. I think that can actually help his draft stock by taking some of the pressure off of him. And he isn't having to take some of these last second shots, maybe not having to force a couple that maybe are ill-advised shots, things like that. But he was great for us. I think at times we relied on him too heavily. And that's just honestly because we had to, because everybody else was dropping the ball.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you need Rodgers to do what he does. You need Hunter to do what he does.
Mhm.
And Haggerty, especially, is the future of the program, in my opinion. Like, you need these other guys to shine just as much as Jones does, in a sense.
Sure.
For this team to, be, a conference winner in the AAC and a decent seed at the very least in the NCAA tournament. I mean, because this team can do better than a 9 seed. It definitely can.
Oh, for sure.
It has the capability to do that. I think if everything works well enough, this can be a top six seed in the tournament for sure.
Let me ask you this: what are both of y'all's expectations? We've talked about this on the Anthony Sane show a few times. Expectations for this Tiger team at where they are right now, because I think I've been hesitant, and I would like to get y'all's opinion on this. I've been hesitant to give my predictions of what I think this roster on its face, looking at it with the potential of David Jones coming back, like what this roster can become, like what this team can become, because obviously they have to get out there on the floor to improve it, right? Like, we were burned last year with the shiny new toys and the idea, like all these fantastic transfer portal guys they brought in, and it just didn't mesh. So there's been kind of a level of hesitancy on my part to go, okay, this is what we can expect. But in terms of y'all's expectations, where are y'all setting the expectation going into this year in terms of what would be a successful season for this Tiger program?
At the end of the day, for me, it's NCAA tournament or bust. They got to get back to the tournament. If they don't, the season's a failure, just flat out. And honestly, I still think you should be able to feel a lot more confidence in this particular group than they did last year, because this year there's a much more clear plan. We're going to build a team around the backcourt, have most of the offense go through them. Frontcourt guys going to be mostly filled with role players, defenders, shot blockers, guys who are going to fill their role and do their job. And the backcourt's going to have guys like that too. But again, most of our offense and our scoring, we're going to be led by, we're going to live and die by our guards and just see what happens from there. Didn't really have much of a plan like that last year. It was basically Quinterly or nothing in terms of playmakers. Then you had, guys like Walton and Jones and Caleb Mills on the wing and Jordan Brown at center. It just so many different guys, so many different, number one scores at so many different positions. It's a much more clear plan this time around. So you got to, I think, take that into account as well.
Yeah, TJ, is it fair to say that the expectation should be that we walk into the weekend of the AAC tournament not concerned about whether or not they're going to make the NCAA tournament? Is that a fair expectation?
100%. I think making the NCAA tournament, given the talent, given everything that's going to go down, I think that's it's unrealistic to not expect that, in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
the talent's going to be there. There's no reason this team should not be set up the way it's set up today, should not be a tournament team, right? And I think there's also a little asterisk there. Maybe it's just for me personally, not being 5th in the American Conference, and it would be incredible. If you can get me a top 2 seed in the American at least, I think that would put a little bit more faith in Penny Hardaway for me personally. It's just never really been able to get over that hill. And I understand Houston has been in the way a little bit, but he's beaten Houston, right? It's these other random teams.
That's the wild part.
That you can't seem to beat out. That it kind of ruins it for you. But you can beat Houston. Come on, man.
Yeah. There's never been this big juggernaut that Penny just can't seem to get past no matter what.
Right.
Because he's beaten Houston multiple times, but it's this random loss to, say, East Carolina on a Thursday night, or losing to Ron Hunter for the 1,000th time in a row,
or Rice coming
yeah,
into
Rice,
the FedEx
like-
Forum and beating the Tigers. Like,
Yeah,
what?
come on, man. Like all due respect to Tulane and Ron Hunter, they should not be knocking Memphis off as many times as they do. Like, come on,
It's
man.
their super. It legitimately is their Super Bowl every time we play them. Like,
Yeah.
it is their Super Bowl.
Tulane will beat Memphis, and then the next night they'll go and lose to like Rice
Alabama State.
100%.
or Alabama State.
No offense to Alabama State, but
Tulane
it
won
is.
like 2 more games after they beat Memphis on January 10th.
Is that not wild? That is true. They only won like 2 more games after that. It's crazy. Crazy.
Jeez.
We're in terms of this offseason, one of the other things that he said in that meetup was that he expects what was it? He's number one, he's got all 6 transfer portal guys signed, sealed, and delivered. They've all signed their NLIs,
Yes.
their letters of intent. And he expects them to be on campus by early June. Like that's
important.
how
Huge.
important is that, TJ? Like that's massive, right?
Yeah, I mean, last season we were going into October, still adding guys. Like, you need guys in. You need to build that camaraderie. You need to make sure people are conditioned. I mean, we had someone who hadn't played basketball, I think, in like 6 months or something like that. Like, my guy was struggling to bend over to tie his shoes at times.
Yes, he was.
So, like,
I've
just
experienced that
having guys
before. I
in
know.
there. You just need guys in there practicing, getting used to each other, learning some timing on some stuff. I as much time as they can spend together, considering it's basically a complete turnover.
Yeah.
And not just players, like staff. There's a lot changing. Get them all used to each other and get them spending time together. Let them learn about each other. Let them build bonds and relationships. It's only going to help everybody.
So this is the first time. I'm sorry, Roman. You can answer. You can go into that as well if you want to. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was basically just going to mention how, this is what Penny has talked about wanting to do for the past couple of years. And now it seems like, assuming things go to plan, he's going to have the opportunity to actually get his guys in as early as he wants. And I'm very interested to see what that's going to produce.
So this is going to be the first year in Penny Hardaway's tenure, TJ, that he has not had either a former East player or a son on the team. Are we going to see a different Penny Hardaway in terms of coaching? Like, is this going to free him up at all? Like, or is there kind of a safety net with those guys that he's kind of experienced over the last 6 years? Like, are we going to see any changes whatsoever in that regard?
I think it's possible, but I don't know. It's hard to project something like that, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I'm curious. I get Alex, right? Alex was always a safety net for sure. But was Jourdain never really a safety net, or was he just a guy you could throw in rotation because you had to? Like, physically, you didn't have any other bodies that could play a 2 or a 3 outside of Jourdain. Maybe Carl, I guess, but you're not.
I think Jourdain definitely was a safety net for him. I think there was a level of like, hey, he's somebody that I know, that I've seen play for a long time. I've coached before, even before I was at Memphis. He might not add a whole lot to what we do on the floor, but he's not going to take away from what we do on the floor. I think there was definitely a safety net there in terms of his playing time. Wouldn't you think?
Well, how much of that is a safety net versus a calculated maneuver, right? You're not going to throw out true freshman Carl Sharon Fant, and you know that he is at best a neutral as opposed to pretty much a negative, right? For the most part, the game it was too fast for him. Yeah, at times you could see it. He was an offensive liability. Like, he had size, there was defensive potential there, but when you put him out there, he couldn't really guard anyone. He couldn't score. At least with Jourdain, you had somebody who has had a lot of games under his belt, and he could be a positive for you. He was never really a negative for the most part.
Well, I would say this. I would say this. I wouldn't say. Go ahead, Roman.
I mean, Jourdain was the best perimeter shooter on the team in the 2022-23 year. So
no, he was effective. He was effective. He was an effective player during that time period.
He was a regular starter on that team. So I think he's definitely been a safety net for sure.
my last year, to me, it wasn't Carl's minutes that were being impacted by Jourdain. It was Jonathan Pierre. Like you saw what Jonathan did when he came in and got actual extended minutes out there. When the Tigers needed production, he produced. And I just wonder if he had been given that chance to do that during December, during January, during those like dark days of the winter when it's just a bunch of AAC games, if he had been given that opportunity to do that, like to be out there and produce and get used to the game, because when there were moments when he got out there where he struggled to make a pass, right? But then something flipped in him, and I think it was just more time, more opportunity where he became an effective player. And I just wonder, the reason I'm asking that question is like he doesn't have that choice of, hey, I got this dude who number one is my son, number two is a guy who I've coached for years. I know what I'm going to get out of him. So instead of letting Jonathan Pierre get out there and make some mistakes, but grow and develop during game time, like that's just that to me is an interesting dynamic to this year, because this is going to be the first year he doesn't have that.
I mean, besides Moussa, he's never coached any of these guys before.
Right.
So you just never know.
Jourdain.
Oh, Jourdain. Jourdain, obviously.
Yeah.
But
And
is Jourdain really going to be that
comes
safety net? Is Cisse really going to be that safety net? No, not really.
That's a good point. It's a good point. Let's get to we've been going for 40 minutes here, so let's do one last quick little topic. Obviously the combine is happening right now as we're recording. David Jones was invited. It was announced maybe about a month ago. It was announced that he was invited to the combine. Nae'Quan Tomlin was at the G League Elite Camp, and due to his play was invited to the combine as well, alongside former Tiger Boogie Ellis. Was also at the G League Elite Camp and was invited to the combine as well. Obviously, I haven't seen any footage coming out from it. I didn't get to watch anything about it today. But David, the big thing that came out about David was the fact that, he was listed at 6'6", but was measured at 6'3.5" with a 6'7" wingspan. Does that impact his draftability, his ability to like maybe even get a two-way or a G League contract? Like, does that change the calculus for y'all in terms of the outlook for him moving forward?
Well, I pretty much thought of him as a second rounder to undrafted guy to begin with. Now, obviously, being listed at 6'6" and then getting measured at 6'3.5", that's not going to help you at all. Like, it's not. But it doesn't change my NBA prospect, view on him too much, because I already had, I don't want to say a low opinion on him, but a skeptical one for sure, because David Jones can score with anybody on the professional level, probably. I mean, he would definitely be able to score against professional defenders. There's no doubt about that. But what about the ball handling? What about the defensive IQ, the on-ball defense in general? I mean, I know that Penny kind of gave him the green light to gamble on defensive time last year, but he still gambled way too much, right? There's still a lot of things that need to be worked out in his game that, if not, can get him ran out of the NBA real quick. And I think scouts are already seeing that already. I don't know if he's going to be able to make up for that in these private workouts or the combine or anything. I mean, the private workouts are going to more so determine what happens with him than the combine for sure, because it could be like a Lester situation where a team just falls in love with him, gives him the promise, and then that's it. You just never know. But on the flip side of that, if David Jones were to not withdraw from the draft and not return to Memphis, I'm fairly certain he would be leaving significant money on the table. I don't know if that was the case with Lester. So we got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, are we working off the assumption that David Jones is going to be a small forward in the NBA? I mean,
not at 6'3".
That's the only thing I can imagine.
Not at 6'3".
That's exactly where I'm going, right? I mean, you have, I think of the Grizzlies, like Marcus Smart is playing the 3. Tony Allen was 6'4", playing the 3. But those are two guys that are just absolute dogs on defense, right? They kind of pride themselves in a different role than what you're going to have from David Jones. And I don't know that you can be 6'3.5". Obviously, that's without shoes, I think. So unless he's wearing like some
some lift
KDs or like one of the taller shoes. Like I don't know how much of a difference it's gonna make.
I mean, with shoes, he's probably closer to 6'4", 6'5", if he's 6'3.5".
Yeah,
but
like,
still,
what are we talking about? Are we up against Kobe Johnson and David Jones for a late second round pick or maybe a 2-way deal? Like I could see someone taking a Kobe Johnson or a guy that is a 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" wing that just has incredible length to them, and they've got the traits that you can't really teach. You can't teach the length like that. With David Jones, I mean, you can't make them longer. You can find other guys and turn them into scorers. So I don't think it bodes well that he's still at 6'3.5" without shoes, and especially since you project him to be a small forward. I don't think he can be a 2. So I don't know. And I think you have a good point though. Someone could definitely fall in love with him. Especially he could easily find himself into a guaranteed 2-way deal because of his ability to score. Just come in and kind of be a lightning in a bottle type of situation. But that 6'3.5" is something I talked about last week. I didn't think he was actually going to come back and measure at 6'6" by any means. And I think it hurts him. He does have a plus wingspan though. I guess that's a positive, right?
But even that, a 6'7" wingspan is not great.
It's nothing. Yeah.
It's not great. All right, I have a question for both of y'all, and I want you to give me one word answer, and then we can talk about it. This will be the last topic for this segment. But who's a better NBA prospect, Nae'Quan or David?
Nae'Quan.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're talking about David Jones, honorable mention All-American last year. 20-something scouts every single game, and you're telling me Nae'Quan's a better NBA prospect?
This isn't about who's the better college basketball player. It's about the better pro prospect, you know? At Nae'Quan Tomlin, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the ability on both ends of the floor. I think he handles the ball extremely well for his position. I think he's got really solid IQ. You know, rebounds extremely well, can block shots. He can be, you know, 3, 4, 5. He has position versatility. I don't think Jones has much of that from a pro perspective. If you're talking about who would I rather build a college basketball roster around, definitely David Jones.
Yeah.
But pro ball, give me Nae'Quan for sure.
Yeah, it's Nae'Quan all day. He, like we said, he's got the measurements. He's so mobile for a guy his size. You can ask him to do multiple things. He can play arguably the 3, 4, or 5, right? I mean, if we were able to see Yuta Watanabe play the 3 effectively in the NBA, I don't see any reason why Nae'Quan couldn't play the 3 effectively. Yeah,
Right.
Santi Aldama has played the 3 at times. Like, what's the difference between Santi and Nae'Quan in terms of mobility? Like, I would honestly argue Tomlin probably has more upside there. He nailed it. I mean, if we're talking about a college team, it's David Jones, but pro prospect, what are you going to do with the 6'3.5" David Jones versus 7 foot 6'11" Nae'Quan Tomlin?
Yeah.
Taking Nae'Quan every day.
I mean, even if he comes back listed at 6'8", he's still a dude 6'9", which we don't know. Go ahead.
We saw Tyreek, or no, I was going to say we saw Tarek Black have an NBA career.
Yeah.
Who's better between Tarek Black and Nae'Quan Tomlin?
Let's go. I agree. Well, Roman, thank you, man, for joining us. Y'all go check out Roman. Sure. Y'all follow Roman on Twitter, man. ROA Clear. Roman is the beat writer for the Tiger basketball for Bluff City Media. Check out all of his work at bluffcitymedia.co. Roman is the man. He has, I found out this week, he finished his exams up 2 weeks ago. He's chilling. It's summertime for him, baby. We had to get him to put a shirt on because he's in summer chill mode. We had to say, Roman, put a shirt on for this conversation, man. Like, this man's laid out on the backyard. He's taking a break. He's on vacation, TJ.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here personally because I don't like talking to Kenny that much. Just nonstop. So I'm just kidding. It's nice to have you here, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank y'all for having me on.
All right. When we come back,
appreciate it,
TJ,
Roman.
we're going to talk Tiger football, right?
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
David Jones, the NBA prospect.
Yeah.
I want to talk through this. I don't necessarily think he's a great fit right now for the NBA. And the reason I say that is he's got to be better on the defensive end because he's going to be either late second round or an undrafted free agent. And he's got to work his ass off on that end to really find his way.
Like, is his ceiling really going to be that much higher than it is right now, regardless of what he does? Like, yes, he still has some development to do, especially on the defensive end of the floor, but he's not getting any younger, and it's going to be hard, even if he is better defensively, to boost his stock because how much more of an offensive ceiling can he show in 1 year?
I still have real questions about him getting the ultimate answer he wants when he gets in front of these scouts. I just don't know if it'll be there. We'll see. I'm rooting for him because I want to see him go off to the next level and be successful.
Tune into On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Holy cow, Minnesota Timberwolves.
It was the best defense that I have seen in an NBA game since I can remember.
They were all up in their ass in that game. I mean, defensively swarm, never gave second chances. Took advantage of every turnover.
Yeah. I mean, to take the challenge that they took on the defensive side and offensive end, why did they come out like that in game 2? It's because they have an absolute mercenary on their team, and Anthony Edwards. Bro doesn't care about, ain't no friends, I don't care what your status is, I'm coming at your neck. And because he's that way, every other player on there is that way. Mike Conley got handshakes.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Mike Conley, handshakes. What?
Yeah.
We couldn't get technical fouls from him.
No.
Tune in to the Night Court Podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Kenneth,
TJ.
what are your feelings on Ryan Silverfield absolutely crushing the transport portal lately?
Crushing the transfer portal. Dude, real quick, before we listen, thank you, Uncle Fred. Right? Like, thank you. I do want to give a big shout out to Roman for joining us in the first segment. That was awesome. Roman is a great follow on Twitter. His writing is impeccable. He is a University of Memphis journalism student, killing it, man. He's doing a great job. So thank you to him for joining us. But back to Ryan Silverfield. That dude, he's in it. I said it in the Discord. He's in his bag, bro. Man is in his bag.
You know, it does seem like he has been a guy over the last couple of years who's been, hey, I committed to you as a player. You committed to us out of high school. I committed to you. We're going to see you grow. And it seems like he's kind of like your feelings these days. And I'm going to bring someone in, and if it feels like recruiting over you, then you just win the battle, right?
Win the battle.
Everyone here's going to have to battle. It's that simple. I mean, my man knows that it's his job to win games. And if you're not the best version of you and that guy's better than you, then he's going to start. It just kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah, man. It definitely feels like we're seeing kind of a, excuse my French here, but we're kind of seeing the big dick energy of Ryan Silverfield right now. Like, of him just being like, yo, dude, like, this is my team. I'm bringing in guys like I think that swagger of bringing in Nowitzki to be the defensive line coach, I think the way that whole thing worked out, I was like, daggum, dude, this dude is just killing the offseason, man, like killing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think he knows. And let's be honest, right? I know Ryan Silverfield has said 1,000 times, like, Memphis is the place for me. This is my
Yeah.
job. I want to be here. Like,
Yeah.
but let's be real. Like, this guy is pretty much interviewing for his next job, no matter what he says. And
See,
I
you
think
keep
have to
saying
realize
that. You keep saying
No,
that,
stop
and I
it.
think that's BS.
No, it's not. No, it's
What?
not.
He just got
Because he could easily parlay this into a bigger job without a doubt in my mind. 100%.
not if it's true, based on what that recruit said. The lineman recruit said they're getting into the AAC. So why would, or not AAC, the ACC? So
ACC,
why?
I know what you meant.
Yes. So this is the job, right? Like I just don't see, and maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm being naive about this, but you've said this. He's clearly interviewing for his next job, and I don't see that. That's not my. I don't buy into that. Yeah, that to me feels like wet blanket TJ coming back out a little bit.
No, dude, hear me out.
Okay.
So I'm not saying he does not care about the Memphis job by any means, but I think if he is awesome at this job, that not only checks your boxes now, like, hey, look, I am awesome. Keep paying me a lot of money. But that also helps you build a resume for your next job. Like, we've already seen him talk to Indiana. He flirted with that Indiana job, whether it was
Leverage.
realistic. If it was just leverage, if it was however you want to word it, right? Like, maybe it wasn't real on Indiana's behalf. Maybe it was some workings of some certain people and agents, things like that. Whatever you want to think about it, right? He still got the interview, and they didn't give a lot of other guys interviews.
Has it ever been confirmed that he actually got the interview?
I think it was confirmed. I'm pretty
I
sure.
don't think it was confirmed.
I'm pretty sure Indiana media had confirmed that.
I just
Pretty
remember
sure of
them
that.
saying that there was an interest there. I never saw an actual interview took place, but I might be wrong.
Maybe
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I could be wrong too. I don't know. Anyway, I think that he is putting together as good of a team as he can. He's going to win a lot of games. And if he is not the coach here next year, I wouldn't be a single bit surprised because of this previous year he had. And if he could segue that into an incredible year this year, I'm okay being a stepping stone university as long as we continue to be a stepping stone, because that means we keep having success and we're continually moving and moving and moving. And I don't know that just getting into the ACC is something that would keep Ryan here, right? Because Memphis is still going to have a threshold at which they can pay their coaches. And that's not going to match an NC State, what they already have, because they already have more money. They can already do things like that. You know,
The threshold changes if they're in a different, if they're in a P4 conference.
To an extent, you don't have the same amount of money that Memphis's athletic department does not have the same as NC State. The athletic budgets are just
Not
completely
right
different.
now. Not right now.
No, it's not going to change. I mean, it will change, right? Don't get me
It'll
wrong.
absolutely
It will
change.
It will change, but not. You're not moved up to par. You're not matching NC State.
It'll change for multitude of reasons. Number one, because you're getting a bigger buyout, right? Like you're getting a bigger conference share, right? Because you're in a bigger conference with a better TV deal. Number one. Number two, you're also getting, you don't think that if the Tigers get into a bigger conference and are consistently up there, even if they're in the AAC, consistently in that college football playoff conversation every single year, that there's not going to be a crap ton of boosters that are going to step in and say, let's start giving more and more money to this program?
I mean, I think it's a little bit different in Memphis because I think you're almost, I don't want to say you've tapped the well dry.
No, you ain't tapped nothing.
But you're hitting a pretty big portion of that booster base already. I'm sitting here, you got me diving in PDFs of the Houston budget book on what they spent on sports when they were in the American, what they have now. And I guarantee you that number has not moved that dramatically that quickly. It's going to take some time before that number moves. But you got me over here looking it up. I'm going to find it and I'm going to post it.
But you also said earlier that a bigger and better job, and then you mentioned Indiana. I wouldn't say Indiana football is a better job than Memphis is. Are you kidding me?
So what do we mean by better in that instance, right?
If you're talking about pay, then okay, I'll give that to you. But in terms of like success on the field, being in the conversation for conference titles and college football playoff opportunities. Listen, Elijah Herring just left Tennessee to come play for Memphis because he knows that Memphis will probably be in the playoffs and Tennessee won't. He told me that specifically. He told me that.
You made that up.
I might have made that up a little bit. I've never talked to Elijah Herring, but I heard rumors.
No,
actually, it was Brandon Bumgarner that said that. That's what it was. Okay. Scratch that argument.
Look, I mean, I'm saying it's a better job in the sense that you're in the Big Ten. You are playing USC, Michigan,
and getting
Ohio State.
Donkey stomped.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter because if you're the guy, you can get donkey stomped the first 2 years. In the third year, if somehow you make it to 8 wins and you're the guy that turns around Indiana against those teams, you're a hero. And guess what? That's going to segue you into your next job. So it doesn't really matter in that instance.
Do you think there's a higher class of player that he has the opportunity to get at a school like Indiana than Memphis? Look at the transfer portal. Look at the kids that are talking. Look at the teams that have offered some of these kids that are starting to come to Memphis, right?
Yeah, I think it just
Chris Adams,
like maybe
committed to Washington, national championship contender last year, and he decommits from Washington and comes to Memphis.
Maybe it's a little bit different of a story. I'm using a basketball school as my example, but that's just the one we have at hand, right? Make it West Virginia, whatever, whoever, what other coach whatever school you want to make it West Virginia, one that's known for football. I think West Virginia can pull these guys in 100%. Like it obviously comes down to, I think, first of all, I don't think NIL is as prominent as maybe we'd like to think it is, right? I think it definitely plays a part into it.
I
Like,
disagree.
Who's going to give me money? Oh, I know. I'm saying it plays a part for sure. But at the same time, I think you want to go to like Blake Watson didn't come here for NIL. He came here because he has seen the line of NIL of Memphis running backs be incredible and then make it to the next league, like make it to that next level. I think that is something that he would see.
Speaking of Blake Watson, we're going to talk about this in a second, but we got some stunning comps from old boy Denver coach, what's his name, Sean Payton, about Blake Watson today that I want to talk to you about because that's wild. All right, go ahead. But I think in terms of, I think Memphis is set up in a way in NIL. I think that's why you're seeing these players start to come here. It has taken an immediate effect, and I think this is why. Because what's the one thing that you've heard the most about from players, whether it be football or basketball? Yeah, we're getting promised all this coin from these schools, but most of us aren't getting paid, right? Like most of us aren't getting the money that we're promised. You look at the involvement of FedEx involved in the NIL fund with Memphis. You look at the 901 fund with football in particular. Like these guys are, this ain't fun coupons that they're just tossing around. Like they are promising a certain amount and not delivering. This is real money that's being offered that players are able to access immediately once they get on campus and start doing the work that's required of them to get that money, fulfilling those contracts. That to me says a lot about the reason why Ryan is having so much success. Not only is he having success on the field and has awesome facilities and involvement and buy-in from the university, but there's also real money behind the program in terms of NIL.
Yeah. And like I'm saying, I'm not eliminating NIL from the decision. Like I think it obviously plays a part. And I think that what FedEx is doing in their partnership with Memphis is relatively one of a kind, right? We've seen some similar stuff at Miami, a little similar at Miami.
Maybe a little shadier at Miami, but
definitely a little shadier, a little dirtier. Definitely in that category, but they've done something similar. I think Houston at one point was doing something kind of similar, not really a company supporting them the way that FedEx is supporting this university, not just football, not just basketball, bevy of women's sports.
basketball.
I think women's soccer got the first check written to them, women's basketball.
And they just signed an awesome recruit out of the transfer portal, Memphis women's basketball. Alex Simmons is already seen the benefits of FedEx's involvement in NIL. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that all plays a role into it, but I think some of that depends on who your coach is. Like you're not going to commit to Memphis if you think Alex Simmons sucks, right? If you think she's a bad coach, you're not just coming here to get a check, right? I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Like you believe in Alex Simmons that she's great because if you've ever listened to her, you know that she's just awesome and that she knows what she's talking about and you can learn from her and things like that, right?
We interviewed her, Christian interviewed her on our one-on-one podcast when she first got here. And man, let me tell you, bro, I was ready to run through a freaking brick wall when she got done talking. I was like, yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
She is awesome. But let's jump back into football. I know you dropped a nugget in there. I guess it's not really that much of a nugget these days. We've all talked about it. Elijah Herring, former linebacker from UT, as committed to Memphis, right? This is a guy that led the Vols in tackles last year. I think it was like 80 tackles, something like that. 4-star guy out of Riverdale, I believe, is where he went. The Tigers recruited him out of high school, obviously doing your due diligence. That around that time they were hitting up Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee pretty heavily at that time.
Yep.
So they're out there, they're talking to Herring. He ends up becoming a Vol, plays there, yada, yada, whatever. Hits the portal. You got to call your guy back. And they bring an absolute stud. What's he, 6'3", 230?
6'3",
build at?
Yep.
Is that right? That's a grown man for a guy who is barely an adult legally. So I'm very interested to see what they do with Herring, honestly, because I think he is a middle linebacker. And I think he's very similar to what they already have in Javonte Mackey. So I don't know if someone's going to get bumped out. Is this bad news for Jaden Fisher? Kind of what they're going to do. But I'm going to let you know, there's a lot of talent in that linebacker room right now. Like a lot of talent. I would honestly feel comfortable saying that this year's linebacker core may be better than last year's linebacker core. And that's
Absolutely.
no disrespect to Jeff Canton Arku, anything like that. But I think that
Sincere Evans was a decent player.
Yeah. I mean, he played
We're talking about
a specific role.
We're talking about this lore has now become the strength of the defense instead of we hope they're good, right?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, Chandler Martin is incredible. There's no doubting that. Javonte Mackey has shown at Arkansas State that he was really good, that he can be very beneficial. He's coming home to Memphis necessarily. You bring in Herring there, Flaker. I said Fisher. Jaden Flaker.
Right.
Jaden Flaker. Is that right? Yeah, Flaker. He came from NC Central, I believe, off the top of my head. You pull in the Harvard linebacker, so there's depth there. Bryce Edmondson's a guy that's been around for a while, so you have some more guys that they know this system. They have a very good relationship with their position coach, now the D coordinator. So there's just a lot going on that defensive side, especially in the linebacker room, that I think bodes pretty well for this defense this year.
I mean, what are your thoughts on, obviously you've got Chandler, you've got Javonte, and you've got Elijah. Those seem to be the guys that are going to be getting the bulk of the linebacker minutes in this team. They've got to be probably right up there as the best linebacking talent trio in the AAC, right? Like, would you think that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be hard to find a more talented group overall. I know Tulane lost some guys that they're ones that stand out, just given the fact that their defense has been so good for so long. Obviously, with the staff changeover and things like that, it makes it a little bit different. But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find a better set of 3 linebackers, especially. I mean, this dude just led an SEC team in tackles.
And
You know what you have in Chandler Martin. He's incredible. You may pull up Javante Mackey stats. You pull it in Flaker, who just had 85 tackles, 10 for a loss, 4.5 sacks, an interception, and a pair of forced fumbles
right.
in the MEAC. I know it's the MEAC, but the talent's still there, right? So you're going to be hard pressed to find anyone better as a core in the American. And honestly, I think you could honestly spread that out to any of the group of 5 teams, honestly.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, Mackey put up 84 tackles last year at Arkansas State. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, it's just interesting because it's like you look at this Tiger team, and obviously both of us have been fans of this Tiger team long before we covered this team, and it's like it's always kind of been this idea that the Tigers offense has always been potent and high powered and successful. We're not called running back U for no good reason, like just a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. And it always has kind of felt like, man, this defense just needs to, if the defense can catch up, if the defense can be, man, just if they can be one of the top defenses in their conference, the Tigers can do really whatever they want. And it, again, just like we said on the basketball side of things, like we got to see it on the field and you got to get some time in there and see what they do on the field together. But just in terms of like, you look at the position groups and you look at the positions and the players that are on this defense now, and you just go, man, where's the weakness at? Right? Like, is there this on paper, the D line, the front 7, just it feels very, very, very potent for this Tiger team, more so than what I think we've experienced in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if you want to nitpick at anything, it's going to be the secondary, which we'll talk on here in a second. There's just been a lot of turnover, and there's some, I guess, unknown is probably the best way to word that. Like, they have brought in a lot of guys that play in the secondary, be it they can be a corner, they can be a safety, they can kind of be that star position that's kind of like a pseudo linebacker, pseudo safety, depending on who it is. I think there's just a lot of unknown. I mean, it's probably 5 or 6 guys now in the secondary that are a new face.
Right.
So again, it's not that they're not good and they're not talented. It's just, we don't know. We haven't seen them. Right. And maybe they weren't great at their last school because the scheme was different and they come here and then they just blow up and they shine. Right. So it's kind of a lot to unpack in a short period of time between spring ball and fall ball before the season actually starts. But we did talk about the safety or the secondary in general. And they did pick up a commitment from Trey Lubin, who is out of Kaiser, I believe was the name of that school. I had to look it up because it is an NAIA school. I can't say I am too familiar with Kaiser as a college. I think they play against the University of Phoenix online in terms of competition, but he has played both corner and safety. My guess is he's probably coming here to play corner, given the amount of guys and the talent of guys they have brought in who play that safety position. It just seems like you'd really be log jamming that unless he was actually meant to be kind of a corner here more so than a safety. But my guess is he's probably a depth piece. But if he's got that dog in him, like he can see himself in rotation, dude. Like, I don't want to put him in a box just because he came from NAIA, right? If he just got that.
Well, I mean,
dog
Diego
in him,
Brumfield came from D3 Campbellsville, so it's like, and he started for the Tigers, and now where is he at? Yeah. He's at Mississippi State, So obviously there's a relationship there between him and Matt Barnes, but Diego was a decent corner for the Tigers last year. That transition didn't seem to be a big deal to him. So I'm wondering what it's going to look like for a guy like Trey Lubin,
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna try to say this respectfully.
Be
He
respectful.
had offers from Tennessee State, Arkansas State, Towson, Alabama A&M, Rhode Island, Maine, UNLV. So essentially, he's all over the board, given the schools that offered him. And there seems to be a talent cap there in a sense, but you never know, right? Are those the offers because he was NAIA and he just didn't get the visibility?
Oh, I'm
right? And
sure.
maybe that's
Yeah.
the recommendation to the staff. Like, hey, look, this guy can actually, he's pretty good. Like, he can stay in front of guys. He's fast. Just give him a shot. Why
Cool.
not take that shot? If
Why
you're
not?
Memphis, right?
Because there's so many unknowns already. Like that seems to be,
100%.
why not add another body to the equation, right? If the secondary is going to be kind of the weak point of this defense, which it's hard to say that just because, again, it's not because the guys they're bringing back are terrible. It's the guys they're bringing back we don't know a whole lot about, right? Like, and I think it's just going to be an interesting. It wouldn't surprise this is the thing. It wouldn't surprise me if they came in and they struggled, and it also wouldn't surprise me if they came in and played very well, because you're also talking about a defensive front seven that's going to be pretty foreboding out there, pretty formidable in terms of getting pressure. And that seems to be the biggest deal to me. And what I've seen in the moves that have been made on the defensive end of the ball is they're concentrating their effort on bringing in guys that are going to get pressure on quarterbacks. And because that's one thing that the Tigers have not done well over the years is get pressure. And I don't care who you are as a corner, it's very difficult to stay in front of a receiver that has 7 seconds to get open. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
So
it's borderline impossible.
I mean, come on. But you're bringing in Spence Nowitzki, you're bringing in all these guys who you brought in, and I know we're going to talk about him, but Dennis from where did he go to school? Georgia State, who led the team in sacks, who would have led the Tigers in sacks if he had played for the Tigers last year in terms of numbers. If you took his numbers and extrapolated them out to playing for the Tigers, he would have led the Tigers in sacks. I mean, we're talking about like, you can tell they're very clearly bringing in guys that are going to get pressure, and that's really good for the secondary. Just means that they don't have to lock down every single play,
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on it, Javon Dennis. I think he was actually named honorable. What is that? They're Sunbelt. Yeah, they're Sunbelt now. Honorable mention for Sunbelt, which, sounds like it means nothing. It's like, hey, great, you were second place in terms of accolades. But like, hey,
come on.
As Kenny just said, this guy just had 6.5 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks. Give me a guy who's got 6 sacks. I don't give a damn what is honorable.
Give me 4 sacks this year, please.
Yeah, I mean, well, what are we talking about? But
let's not get it twisted, man. Like, we can sit here and say the talent differential is the Sun Belt. You look at the conferences, and it's not like the Sun Belt is like a shit show compared to the AAC, man. Like, let's be real about it.
Oh, no, I think last year at times the Sun Belt was probably a better conference. If you want to talk about it from a football standpoint, I mean,
right.
It probably was. I mean, you had James Madison went 11-2, App State 9-5, Coastal Carolina, who's normally pretty good.
Yeah.
Had a bad year at 8-5.
Coaching
Troy
turnover
was 11-3.
Yeah. Come on.
Like, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, shit, James Madison wasn't eligible for, I think, well, did they end up getting that overturned? The James Madison, they couldn't play in a bowl game situation?
I think it was they couldn't be in the playoffs. Not that they couldn't play in a bowl.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what it was.
So they played in a bowl. They just couldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think
but they would have been if this had been their second year in Division I, they would have probably been in the playoffs.
Oh, 100%. I think they would have been the representative. I think they were ranked higher at the time, but no, the Sun Belt's a good team or a good conference. And if he was able to put up those numbers in the Sun Belt. I'm assuming he could do something similar here.
Yep.
Obviously, no guarantee you're going to start. As we've talked about, Ryan says you guys are going to have to come in and work. You're going to have to compete.
Yep.
And it may be a situation where we're going to have Javon Dennis fighting Cormonte Hamilton for a starting defensive end spot. Or
I'm so down for all of that.
Yeah, Dennis going head to head with give me any other D lineman right now. You know, just anything. So look, it's going to be a madhouse. It's going to be competition. And if we have somebody who transfers out, like, it kind of is what it is, right? You're bringing guys in, you got to trim down the roster somehow. I think these are all great additions. And I'll put an asterisk on a great addition next to Trey Lubin. I'm not going to act like I know anything about Trey Lubin. But maybe my dude's got that dog in him. Maybe he's got the dog in him, Kenny.
I love it. Speaking of somebody who has a dog in him, Blake Watson signed a very nice contract, unrestricted or undrafted free agent contract with the Denver Broncos. They are in the middle of is it rookie mini camp right now in the NFL? And Sean Payton stands up at the podium today and he says, listen, I don't want to compare him to Alvin Kamara, but, and then proceeds to spend the next 2 minutes talking about how Blake Watson is like Alvin Kamara. I don't want to get into the specifics of that other than is Blake going to be an effective NFL running back? Like, you think he's going to get,
why not?
Cause I just wonder, like, is it a system thing? Because like, I would never, Kenny Gainwell was one of the most talented players I've ever seen, right? Run the ball for the Tigers. Like, he was phenomenal. He did things on the football field that I think nobody's done, right? Like 200 yards rushing, 200 yards receiving in one game. You know, he's able to do things that a lot of players aren't able to do. And it feels like he can't crack the rotation with Philly on a consistent basis. He's not getting the love right now. It feels like, you know, in terms of Memphis running backs, it's Tony Pollard and kind of everybody else in terms of effectiveness on the field. Do you think Blake can can he get through that ceiling of like and actually get meaningful minutes on the football field for the Denver Broncos or for any team that picks him up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not, right? He's got the skill set. We've seen that. He's shown that here. I mean, hell, he showed it at Old Dominion too. Yeah. I think the one thing that kind of holds him back is, like Kenny, he is kind of more of a change of pace back. You know, they're both relatively slight. We say slight, you know, like 6 foot, 200 pounds. The Eagles have Saquon Barkley back there, who's like 230. He is built to take on the bulk of carries. I think it's Javonte Williams, Audric Estime, and Samaje Perine are obviously all the running backs at Denver. All bigger guys, right? They are just better built to take on the general workload of the higher rep counts. Like, you're not going to likely get that from a guy like Blake Watson. But that's not to say that he cannot be, like Kenny, the clear-cut, I feel like it's fair to say, the clear-cut number 2 back in those systems. It's just at the day and age, we're going back to the old school where it seems like guys are starting to split carries less, and they're kind of going more back to like a bell cow type of situation at times. But
it feels that way, doesn't it?
It kind of, at times it does. I do think a lot of people are very high on Blake Watson, and he and Kamara are similar. As I said 2 episodes ago, I think it was now, that they have very similar skill set. And it seems a lot of people are very high on Blake Watson and what he can be for that Denver Bronco team. And one thing I think that's important to note, and this kind of plays a role into who's getting carries and things like that, but Denver doesn't have any guaranteed money towards running backs in 2024.
Yeah.
So that bodes well for Blake Watson, right? If you see P. Ryan as expendable at this point because you can save some money because P. Ryan and Blake kind of do similar things in the sense that they can both catch the ball out of the backfield. It's, well, if I trust this rookie and I'm only paying $250K for him versus P. Ryan, who probably has a $2 million contract or something like that, and I can save some money. Like, what are we doing? What are we talking about at this point? So I think you definitely work your way in if you're Blake Watson, right?
I love it. I love it. All right, man. We've been going on 1 hour and 25. Let's get to this beer.
So I don't know if anybody. I'm curious how many people have heard of this. I heard of it, had it, either or. This is really old. I don't know when they. I drank it all, but I just dropped it. I don't know when they left Memphis and stopped making this. If we're looking at it just from a can perspective, this thing is pretty damn boring. I'll be real honest with you.
Yeah, it is.
But I think it's one of those situations where it was like the original Memphis beer and they didn't change anything about it. Like, it's still got the old school vibe to it. In 1905, it looks like this was here, let's read it. Goldcrest beer began as a brand of Memphis's own Tennessee Brewing Co., which are now apartments downtown, in 1906, actually. Okay. So it's a part of the Tennessee Brewing Co. I did not know that. And I don't know who makes it now, but the can is pretty damn boring. I'm not going to lie. It feels like it came from 1906 still.
The question is, when did it get canned? Because you're known to have some pretty old beers. Is that?
No, this is a remake. They brought it back. Someone started canning it again. I can't remember who it was. Probably someone in St. Louis. I feel like everything goes through St. Louis at this point in time.
Right.
But
everything. Yeah.
The can's pretty lame. I'm not going to lie. I'll give it some bonus points because I know that they're trying to reach back to the old school mindset of it all. Yeah. I'll give it like a 5.1 just to match the Goldcrest 51. I'll just put a little decimal in there. In terms of the beer, I don't actually hate it. I think it's pretty good considering it's like an old school beer, right? I could probably drink 2 of these. I don't know if I would want to, but I could, right? So I'd put it right on the line. I'd say it's probably a 6.9 beer. I don't mind it. I like lagers a lot, but it's got something going on in the mouth feel that I'm having to like clear my mouth and drink some water to kind of clear out. So
that's not
if
good.
You haven't had it. Yeah, I got mine at maybe Whole Foods. I can't remember. I found that Whole Foods will sell individual beers every now and then. So I swing by there just to top Trey and I off with a couple of beers if I'm not going to my usual spot to find them. So works it out. So we go back. The can, 5.1. The beer, I'll say it's a 6.9. And I'm going to make Trey chug this after the next episode.
6.9 is not
bad.
Not bad.
It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad at the same time.
Because your 7.0 is like your standard for like multiples.
Yeah, I think it's 7. I'd say I would want to drink multiple.
Yeah.
Right. And I think 7's like a good beer. 6 is like, yeah, it's okay.
If you have to brush your teeth between beers, it's probably not a great beer.
Yeah.
Right. Like not something you would want to hit all the time.
Not exactly. No.
No, I feel you. I feel you on that.
I'm going to find a second one of these. I'm going to make Trey chug it before the next episode.
Let's go. But no, we need to do it on the episode.
We'll start the episode off with that. How about that?
I like that idea. Hey, brother, listen, good show. Thanks for letting me join you, man.
No, we love having you on. It's just the screen gets real crunched down with all 3 of us on here at the same time. But I appreciate you being with me, Roman. We appreciate you jumping in. We'll love to hear the gospel of Roman, if you will.
That's right.
He has tons of insight there, slinging articles left and right. But we appreciate it. Come for the cold beer, stay for the hot takes. Peace.
If you enjoyed this episode of Tigers Untapped, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Like and subscribe at Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports.